A young girl named Ellie Arroway is using her radio to try and make contact with other receivers, but isn't having any luck. Her father Ted walks in and sees her frustrated. He says that she has to be patient and take it one step at a time. Finally, Ellie manages to make contact, and it is revealed that she contacted a receiver all the way in Pensacola, Florida. Ellie is pleased with her progress, and so is her father. Later at night, Ellie inquires from her father about all the places where their radio could make contact. She asks if it can make contact in New York, Alaska, China, and Jupiter, and her father replies, yes, every time. Ellie then asks if the radio could make contact with her mom. Her father's face becomes sad. He hugs Ellie and tells her that even the biggest radio can't reach that far, implying that her mother has passed away. Ellie makes a drawing of what she thinks Pensacola would look like, and her father compliments it. Before she goes to sleep, Ellie asks her father if he thinks there are people somewhere out there in the universe. Her father replies that he doesn't know for sure, but if it is just them, it would be an awful waste of space. Fast forward, Ellie is now grown up and a brilliant scientist. She arrives at a facility called Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico, where she spends her time using the large radio telescope to listen to radio emissions from space, hoping to find a sign of extraterrestrial life. One day, as she is listening, a scientist named Kent comes into the room. He is blind, but he listens to the emissions with Ellie and compliments that she still actually listens, instead of just reading data off the computer like everyone else. Kent says that he knows Ellie has worked under a scientist named Dr. David Drumlin, who is now the head of the National Science Foundation. Ellie is hesitant to make any comments about Drumlin, indicating that they have a strained relationship. Kent reveals that Drumlin made some remarks about Ellie in which he complimented her intelligence, skill, and drive, but said that she is obsessed with a field of science that is equivalent to career suicide, aka searching for extraterrestrial intelligence. Next, Ellie is sitting in a cafe when she is approached by a man named Palmer Joss, who wants to interview her for his book about the effects of science and technology on third world cultures. Palmer also reveals that he is trying to reach Drumlin. When Ellie reveals that she works in SETI, Palmer is surprised because he knows Drumlin is a practical man, and Ellie chasing little green men from space would irk him. Ellie refuses to comment on the matter. Palmer then asks Ellie out on a date, which she refuses, but she tips him off that Drumlin will be coming to Arecibo next week. Drumlin arrives and his disdain for Ellie is immediately evident. Drumlin thinks that science must be accountable to the people who pay for it, the taxpayers, and must focus on making life better for them. Ellie is appalled that Drumlin wants to do away with all pure exploratory research and only focus on practical applications of science. Palmer tries to interview Drumlin, but it doesn't go well. Drumlin says that Palmer is writing a book on the evils of technology, which is inaccurate. During the conversation, Drumlin calls Palmer Father Joss, and this alarms Ellie, who is a devout atheist. Palmer tells her that he's not a priest. He studied religion, but couldn't go through with the celibacy that came with being a man of the cloth. Amen to that, brother. The two go out, and Ellie tells Palmer all about how the universe is enormous, and if just one other planet out there would have life, it would be incredible. Palmer says that if there is no other life, it would be an awful waste of space. The words of her father coming out of this hunk's mouth turn Ellie on, and she kisses him. Somewhere in the afterlife, Freud jumps with joy. Next, Ellie and Palmer are lying in bed, and Palmer is telling Ellie all about how he found God, but she isn't buying it. They talk about Ellie's family, and Ellie reveals that both her parents died when she was very young. Palmer empathizes with her, but suddenly Ellie leaves in a hurry, deflecting all attempts of Palmer to try and set up a second date. He is confused. Ellie remembers the day her father died. She is getting ready to see a meteor shower with him, but he falls due to some unknown condition. Ellie rushes to get his medicine, but can't reach him in time, and he passes away. At the funeral, a priest tells Ellie that they aren't always meant to know why things happen. Sometimes they just have to accept it as God's will. Ellie replies that if she had just kept some medicine in the downstairs cabinet, her father would still be alive. After the priest leaves, a crying Ellie desperately tries to use the radio to contact her father. In the present, Ellie is working when Kent arrives and tells her that Drumlin pulled the plug on the SETI program, which means they are now jobless and homeless. Ellie angrily confronts Drumlin, but he simply tells her that he is doing her a favor. She is wasting her talents. Ellie says that it's her life, and she can do with it what she wants. Next, Ellie and Kent decide that they are going to appeal to private investors and set up their own SETI program at the Very Large Array in New Mexico. As Ellie is leaving Puerto Rico, she sees a note from Palmer on her bed with his number on it, but she decides to not call him. Next, Ellie struggles to secure funding from private investors. She arrives at a company called Haddon Industries, owned by billionaire industrialist S.R. Haddon. She makes her case through a presentation, but is told that her work is less science and more science fiction. Ellie gets angry and says that all major scientific breakthroughs, like the airplane and a mission to the moon, were science fiction at some point. The committee is not convinced, but her speech impresses Haddon himself, who approves her funding. 4 years later, Ellie has been working in New Mexico, but still hasn't had any success in her search for aliens. Kent informs her that the entire scientific community, led by Drumlin, is pushing to remove Ellie from the New Mexico facility because it is a waste of resources, even if the money is coming from Haddon. Ellie says they'll look for some other facility, but Kent tells her to face the facts. They are a joke to the scientific community, and no one will lend them their radio telescopes anymore. Meanwhile, Palmer has published his book and has become a major spiritual leader. He even serves as a kind of consultant at the White House. He reveals in an interview that he isn't against science and technology. He just wants to know whether it has aided the human quest for truth and happiness. One night, as Ellie is listening to the radio emissions from space, she hears a loud and unambiguous signal coming in. She is shocked and rushes back to the facility to make sure that it is definitely from space and not some kind of interference from Earth or a fault in the system. It is revealed that the signal is definitely an extraterrestrial communication. It is coming from the star Vega. Ellie is ecstatic. She confirms it from several sources internationally. She then notices that the signal is repeating in bursts which equal prime numbers, ranging from 2 to 101. Next, Ellie calls anyone and everyone to share the discovery. The next morning, as Drumlin arrives with the military and Senator Michael, the press is already there. Senator asks why the aliens would send prime numbers in the signal. And Ellie explains that mathematics is the only true universal language. The aliens are trying to get their attention. The senator is upset that Ellie immediately went public with this information, but Drumlin explains that international cooperation was needed for this discovery. Kent arrives and realizes that there is more information embedded in the signal, and it is audio and video. Ellie plugs it into a television, and it is revealed to be the broadcast of Hitler's speech at the 1936 Olympics, which was the first radio transmission strong enough to escape Earth and float into the universe. At the White House, Ellie explains that sending back this transmission is the aliens' way of saying that they are listening. A press conference is held, and Ellie thinks that she will be addressing the public, but due to Ellie's reputation for being unpredictable, Drumlin is chosen for the speech instead. Ellie is devastated. She receives a call from Kent, who informs her that there is even more data in the signal. Almost 65,000 pages of encrypted text. Ellie shares this with the White House, and they order that the world's top decryption specialists be put on the job of figuring out what is on the pages. They also inform Ellie that she is in charge of the New Mexico facility for now, but she is not allowed to go public with any new information without express permission from the government. Next, a festival goes on outside the New Mexico facility, and Ellie notices a religious extremist criticizing scientists, saying he doesn't want them representing him in front of God. Ellie and the decryption specialist work on the pages for many months with no success. One day she receives an email from Haddon himself. He tells her to meet him at a secret location. Haddon reveals that he has been observing Ellie for a long time, and he considers her a great investment. She is his way of giving back to the people from whom he has taken so much. He reveals that he has decoded the pages and shares the data with Ellie. Ellie shows this data to the White House and reveals that the pages are a blueprint for some kind of machine. The government is concerned that the machine could be a weapon to be used against humanity, but Ellie scoffs at that idea. Just then, Palmer arrives in the room, who is now a consultant on the committee. Ellie is surprised to see him. Palmer takes the stance that while he isn't against building the machine, there is a religious implication to this whole matter that they need to be careful about. Next, Ellie arrives at a White House reception dinner where she talks to Palmer about his book. She says that his book makes it seem like science killed God, but science just proved that God never existed in the first place. Palmer says that he cannot imagine living in a world without God. Ellie says that she needs proof to believe in God. Palmer asks her if she loved her father. She replies she did. He asked her to prove it, and she is dumbfounded. Just then, the two receive calls and learn that a page of the blueprint has revealed that it is a machine that will transport one human occupant, presumably to Vega, to meet the aliens. A White House meeting is called, and it is decided that the machine will be built, and the occupant will be decided from a list of candidates by a special committee. Ellie is on the top of the list of candidates, while Palmer is on the committee that makes the decision. In the following months, the machine is built, while the candidates do interviews. Palmer notices that Ellie's interviews regularly lack any mention of faith or spiritual belief of any kind. Palmer meets with Ellie and points out that if she is selected, in the best-case scenario, she would travel in the machine at the speed of light, so when she comes back, the Earth will have aged 50 years. Everyone she knows will be dead and buried. In the worst-case scenario, the machine will malfunction, and she will die. He asks why she is willing to risk that. Ellie replies that for as long as she can remember, she's been trying to understand why life exists, why human beings are here, and if she can even get a part of that answer, it is worth one human life. The two kiss and admit that they are both very confused. Next, Ellie appears before the selection committee, and her final interview goes very well, making her the most likely candidate to be selected. However, before the interview ends, Palmer asks her if she is a spiritual person. She doesn't understand, and he straight up asks if she believes in God. Ellie says that she doesn't understand the relevance of the question. The committee members say that 95% of the race she is going to represent believe in some kind of higher power. The question is very relevant. Ellie makes it clear that she believes in empirical evidence, of which there isn't any for God. Drumlin goes next, and taking advantage of the situation, he makes it very clear that he is a believer. He is selected to be humanity's representative. Ellie is devastated and demands to know why Palmer did this. He replies that he couldn't in good conscience make someone a representative of humanity when that person honestly believes that 95% of humans are caught in some kind of mass delusion. Next, Drumlin does lots of PR events while the machine is built to completion. And finally, the day to test the machine arrives. The machine consists of giant rings which spin at high speeds, while a passenger pod falls into them. However, what no one knows is what exactly will happen when the passenger pod reaches right at the center of the rings. Ellie is present on the day of the test, but during the procedure, she notices that one of the technicians is the religious extremist she saw outside the New Mexico facility in disguise. She tries to warn Drumlin, but is too late, and the extremist detonates a bomb that destroys the megastructure, killing Drumlin and everyone present. Ellie and the entire scientific community are devastated at this turn of events. But one day, Ellie returns home and finds a communication system set up for her to talk to Haddon. Haddon is in space in order to slow down the spread of cancer inside his body. He reveals that the American government secretly built a second machine in Japan using private Japanese contractors. Haddon owns the contracting company, and he has used his influence to make sure that Ellie gets to be the one to go this time, especially since the American government still wants an American to represent humanity. Ellie arrives in Japan and prepares to enter the machine. Right before it is time for her to go, Palmer arrives to see her. He says that the reason he said he didn't vote for her to go before was a good reason, but not the real reason. The real reason he didn't vote for her was because he did not want to lose her. He asks her to come back home safely. Next, Ellie arrives at the site and settles into the passenger pod. She is provided with an audio-video headset to document and communicate her entire journey. The door to the pod is closed and the rings start powering up. As the rings reach 60% power, Ellie starts noticing that the material of the pod is becoming translucent. She tries to convey this information to Mission Control, but just then, her audio-video communication starts breaking up. The rings reach 100% power, and the core of the rings emits large amounts of energy, drawing objects toward itself. The passenger pod is dropped right into the core, and Ellie sees herself going through a wormhole. After a strenuous journey, she arrives at a star, which she recognizes as Vega. She sees alien constructions around it, but before she can observe more, she goes through another wormhole. She arrives at a 4-star system, over a planet that clearly shows signs of civilization. Once again, before she can observe more, she goes through another wormhole. The pod starts shaking violently, but she realizes that if she ejects from the seat, she won't feel anything. The pod becomes translucent again, and she sees a galaxy right outside. She is overwhelmed by the beauty of what she is witnessing and starts crying with joy. Next, Ellie wakes up on a beautiful beach, but notices that her surroundings are weird when she touches them. She sees a being walking toward her in the distance, but when the being gets close, it is revealed to be her dad. She becomes emotional and hugs him, but suddenly she realizes that neither he nor this place is real. The aliens downloaded her thoughts and memories and have come to her in the form of her dad. This beach is from the drawing of Pensacola she did as a kid. The alien tells her that they did this to make things easy for her. She asks him why his species contacted humans, and he replies that humans contacted them. They were just listening. She asks him if there are other civilizations like them in the universe, and he replies that there are many others. She asks him how they built the transit system, and he replies that they didn't build it. Some other species did that left a long time ago. The alien says that humans are interesting. They are capable of such beautiful dreams and such horrible nightmares. They feel lost and alone, but they are not. He reveals that his species has searched the universe for billions of years, and the one thing they have found that makes the emptiness bearable is each other. The alien says that it is time for Ellie to go home. Ellie says she has so many questions for him. He tells her that this is just the first step, and in time, humanity will take another. She tries to argue, but he says to her, "Small moves," just like her father used to say, and she understands. Next, the pod falls back on Earth, and Ellie asks how long she was gone. She is informed that the pod fell straight through the machine. She didn't go anywhere. Ellie is shocked. She describes her whole experience to everyone, but they tell her that her audio-video recording device only recorded static, and the pod fell straight through the machine without a second's delay. When Ellie insists that her experience actually happened, an international committee is formed to get to the bottom of the matter. Ellie explains to the committee that the machine opened a wormhole, which is why, due to time dilation, she experienced 18 hours of interstellar travel, while from Earth's perspective, she was only gone a second. The committee, and particularly Senator Michael, insists that Ellie experienced a hallucination because she has no physical proof to back up her story. As a scientist, Ellie admits she has to entertain this possibility, and the committee asks why she won't withdraw her testimony then. Ellie explains it is because she truly believes she experienced what she did. Every part of her being tells her so. She finally understands how Palmer feels, trying to convince her of his divine experience. After the hearing, Ellie and Palmer step outside, and Ellie learns that the majority of the public believes her and supports her. Senator Michael and the secretary discuss the investigation report in secret and learn that while Ellie's audio-video device did record static, it recorded almost 18 hours of it, exactly the amount of time Ellie claims she was gone. 18 months later, Ellie now has government grants to continue her SETI work, and she is taking a school field trip through the facility. One of the students asks her if there is life other than humans out there in the universe. She replies that the universe is huge, so if it's just them, it would be an awful waste of space.